to determine the domain of our function, we have the rule that the natural log of an input, that input must be greater than 0. So e sine of x must be greater than 0. Dividing by e, we have that sine of x must be greater than 0. And if we think about our unit circle, this happens in the first and second quadrants. And so from 0 to pi, and we can't include either of those endpoints because sine is equal to 0 at those places. But we can go on forever and ever around the unit circle, and so actually we'll have a 0 plus 2 pi times n, and then a pi plus 2 pi n. Okay. Or just 2 pi n to pi plus 2 pi n, where n is an integer. So there's our domain of our function. For part B, we need our range. And we will be taking the natural log of this e sine of x. And so we want to know the possible outputs. Well, first of all, we know that sine of x is going to be between 0 and 1. We already determined that. That was our restriction on our domain, is that the sine of x had to be greater than 0. But of course, sine of x will never be bigger than 1. It might equal 1, though. And so if we multiply by e, we still have 0 less than e sine of x less than or equal to, well, 1 times e, which is e. And now we think about the natural log of numbers between 0 and e. Now, the natural log, we can never plug in 0. However, if we think about our graph of the natural log, we have this asymptote at 0. And so for the numbers bigger than 0, we could get anything down to negative infinity. And so our natural log of e sine of x will be, well, greater than negative infinity, and less than or equal to, and the natural log of e is 1. So our range is from negative infinity to 1. And we can certainly equal 1. And then finally we need our x-intercept. And the x-intercept of a function is simply when the function equals 0. And so we take our function, natural log of e sine of x, and we're going to set it equal to 0. And so we will do e raised to both sides. We get e sine of x equals e to the 0, which is 1. We can divide by e, and we have sine of x equals 1 over e. And that's not a special angle on the unit circle, so we won't be able to go much further. All we can say is, let's take the arc sine. And the arc sine will give us a number between 0 and pi over 2. And so we actually have more than just this. And let's think about the unit circle. Now, arc sine of 1 over e, who knows where that would be, somewhere around there. So this is the angle that this is our x. But there's also one over here, okay, from the symmetry of sine. So that right there would be x. So we also have pi minus x, pi minus that number, I should say. And then, of course, we could have those angles and then add 2 pi any number of times. So plus 2 pi n plus 2 pi n, where n is an integer. So those are our x-intercepts.